A story of love, prejudice, and family. The white two-story house standing in a residential neighborhood on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio, was the epitome of a typical middle-class home. The well-maintained lawn, red brick walkway, and seasonal flowers decorating the front entrance spoke to the meticulous nature of its inhabitants. Every time Emily Thompson visited her childhood home, she felt memories from her girlhood come flooding back. Her father Robert was a serious man who worked as an accounting manager at a local mid-sized construction company, while her mother Dorothy had managed the household as a full-time homemaker. Both were good people with typical Midwestern values, though sometimes the narrowness of those values became apparent. "Emily, welcome home," Dorothy greeted her daughter at the front door. White had begun to mix into her mother's hair, but her smile was as warm as ever. "I'm home, Mom. Marcus is with me too." When Marcus, Emily's husband, appeared from behind her, Dorothy's expression stiffened slightly. It was only for a moment, and she quickly put on a forced smile. "Marcus, welcome." Marcus was a gentle man. He was tall with a trim build and kind, intelligent eyes. And above all, his skin was a beautiful brown color. 2 years had passed since he married Emily, but there was still a subtle tension between him and his in-laws. "Good afternoon, Dorothy." "Thank you for always having me," Marcus said, bowing his head politely. His manner was always gentlemanly, and he treated everyone with respect. In the living room, Father Robert was watching television. He was dressed in his usual outfit of a plain shirt and brown slacks, and when he saw Marcus, he raised his hand lightly in greeting. "Hey there, Marcus. Good to see you, Robert." The conversation always ended at about this level. Robert never took openly rude behavior toward Marcus, but he didn't seem to welcome him wholeheartedly either. Emily's heart ached every time she saw her father's attitude. "Isn't Jessica coming yet?" Emily asked her mother. "She should arrive soon. She has wedding planning meetings today," Dorothy's voice brightened. Emily's younger sister Jessica was a nurse, and her lively, sociable personality made her their parents' pride. Next month, she was scheduled to marry Brian, a doctor who worked at the same hospital. The front door burst open energetically, and Jessica came bouncing in with a smile. With her blonde hair in a ponytail and wearing her nurse's uniform, she looked exactly like a healthy young American woman. "Everyone, good to see you." Jessica hugged Emily and kissed both parents. Then she stopped in front of Marcus. "Marcus, how are you?" "Fine, thanks to you." "The wedding preparations must be exhausting, right?" "They are. But it's fun," Jessica laughed without reserve, but Emily detected a faint uneasiness behind that smile. At dinner time, the family of 4 and Marcus gathered around the dining table. Dorothy had prepared roast beef, mashed potatoes, and green beans for the meal. "So, have you finalized the guest list for the wedding?" Emily asked her sister. "Pretty much. But I'm still making adjustments," Jessica answered vaguely. "There are lots of things to think about, like photography and such." When Marcus offered, "If there's anything I can help with, please don't hesitate to ask," a subtle silence fell over the table. "Thank you, Marcus," Jessica answered with a smile, but it was more awkward than before. Emily felt her grip tighten on her fork. She could feel the invisible tension flowing through her family. Marcus sensed this atmosphere but maintained his calm demeanor. His kindness only made Emily's heart ache more. After the meal, while Emily was helping her mother in the kitchen, she said, "Mom, can't you still accept Marcus?" Dorothy stopped washing dishes. "That's not true. I think he's a good person. But you feel some kind of discomfort, don't you?" "Emily, we're trying to accept him as family. It's just..." Dorothy trailed off. "Sometimes I worry about people's reactions. That's all." Emily could understand her mother's honest feelings. There probably wasn't any malice. However, that unconscious prejudice was what hurt the most. In the living room, Marcus was talking baseball with Robert. Their conversation was superficial, but Marcus patiently accommodated his father-in-law. Watching her husband, Emily was reminded again of his wonderful character. At the same time, she harbored complex feelings toward her own family. Her beloved family and her beloved husband. Emily felt acutely the delicate nature of her position standing between them. On the Sunday afternoon 1 week before Jessica's wedding, the entire Hamilton family had gathered in the living room. Wedding details and photo samples were scattered across the coffee table, and Jessica was excitedly organizing them. "All right, let's do the final confirmation," Jessica said, opening the notebook in her hand. 120 guests total. After the church ceremony, there'll be a reception in the hotel's banquet room. Dorothy sat next to her daughter, nodding happily. "It's going to be a lovely ceremony. Brian's parents are so pleased too." "About the photography," Jessica said, looking a bit nervous. "I hired a professional photographer. We're planning to take lots of family photos." Emily sat next to Marcus, listening to her sisters talk. Marcus was smiling quietly as usual, but Emily could tell he was a little tense. "So," Jessica continued, "there's been a change to the seating chart." "What kind of change?" Emily asked. Jessica looked at their mother and father before answering. "Actually, Brian's grandparents decided to attend at the last minute. We need to prepare front row seats for them." "That's wonderful," Emily said with a smile. "It's like celebrating their long life too." However, Jessica's expression remained clouded. "So we need to adjust the seating. Emily and Marcus, could you move to seats a bit further back?" Emily frowned. "Further back? How far back?" "Toward the middle. But you'll still be able to see fine." Marcus calmly interjected, "Of course, that's no problem. It's natural to prioritize elderly guests." At that moment, Dorothy said anxiously, "Jessica, about the photographs." "What about the photographs?" Emily looked at her mother. Dorothy answered while fidgeting with her hands. "Well, when I spoke with the photographer, we discussed lighting and how things would look in the photos." "What did you discuss?" Well," Dorothy continued with difficulty. "He said that differences in skin color would stand out very much in the photographs. The professional said that adjusting the lighting would be difficult." Emily's face went pale. "Mom, what are you saying?" "Don't misunderstand, Emily," Dorothy waved her hands frantically. "I don't have any ill will toward Marcus. It's just that photographs last forever." Marcus's expression hardened. He said quietly, "So you're saying that having me there would make the photos look bad?" "That's not what I mean," Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "But, you know, there's still the matter of unity." "Unity?" Emily's voice trembled. "You mean unity because everyone's white?" Robert leaned forward from the sofa. "Emily, don't blame your mother. She's having a hard time with this too." "I'm the one having a hard time, Dad. When I'm told that having my husband in family photos is a problem, what am I supposed to do?" Jessica suddenly stood up. "I can't stand this anymore." Everyone's eyes turned to her. Jessica's face was bright red, and the emotions she'd been suppressing exploded. "I'll be honest. Your husband is black, isn't he, sis? Everyone knows it, but nobody will say what's really going on, so we can't move forward." "Jessica." Emily stood up. "This is my wedding. The most important day of my life." Jessica's voice became hysterical. "I'm embarrassed, so I don't want him to come. Everyone will be looking. My friends, Brian's family, people from work." Emily stared at her sister in disbelief. "Embarrassed? You're saying Marcus is embarrassing?" "Yes." Jessica shouted through her tears. "Don't you know what everyone will think? They'll whisper behind my back, 'Jessica's sister married a black man.'" Marcus slowly stood up. Deep sadness showed on his face. "I understand. I'll refrain from attending." "Marcus, that's not right," Emily grabbed her husband's arm. "You've done nothing wrong." "But I can understand Jessica's feelings," Marcus said quietly. "If it's important to her." "No." Emily cried out tearfully. "You're my husband. Your family. Dorothy said through tears. Emily, try to understand Jessica's feelings too. It's a once-in-a-lifetime wedding. Then what about my marriage? When I married Marcus, did all of you celebrate wholeheartedly? Silence fell. That silence was more eloquent than any words for Emily. Robert opened his mouth heavily. Emily, maybe we can't keep up with the times. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Dad. We were raised in ordinary families. We have ordinary values. I don't think that's wrong. Robert's voice was full of conviction. Marcus is a good person. I acknowledge that. But what? But there are still differences. We can't deny that. Emily looked around at her family. Her mother was wiping away tears with her head down, her father had his mouth set in a stubborn line, and her sister was still breathing heavily in her excited state. Fine, Emily said quietly. But if Marcus doesn't go, then I won't go either. Emily. Jessica cried out. Even you won't come. Of course. We're husband and wife. We're one. But at least, Jessica continued while tears streamed down her face, at least, could he make his skin lighter? With makeup or something. That way, he wouldn't stand out so much. Emily was speechless at her sister's words. She could see Marcus's shoulders trembling slightly. Jessica Hamilton, Emily's voice was cold as ice. You just said something terrible. Make his skin lighter? What do you think human dignity is? Dorothy tried to mediate. Everyone, let's calm down. I can't calm down, Mom. Emily looked at her entire family. You don't see my husband as a human being. You only judge him by his skin color. Marcus gently took Emily's hand. Emily, that's enough. Let's go home. Marcus. It's all right. I'm used to this, his smile was sad. But it hurts to see you get wounded. Emily gazed at her husband. When she imagined how much prejudice this gentle man had fought against, her heart felt ready to break. I wonder what family really means, Emily murmured to no one in particular. Is family only about blood relations? Aren't people who love each other family? No one answered. Emily and Marcus took each other's hands and left the Hamilton house. On the day of Jessica's wedding, St. Mary's Church on the outskirts of Columbus had been bustling with preparations since morning. The altar decorated with white roses and baby's breath, chairs tied with pure white ribbons, and a snow-white carpet laid down the center aisle. Everything was the perfect stage setting for a wedding. Emily stood in front of her closet at home, hesitating as she held a blue dress. In the week since that family meeting, she and Marcus had talked many times. Her husband said, you don't have to go, but Emily couldn't miss her sister's wedding. You're going after all, Marcus said, entering the bedroom. He was wearing a navy blue suit, dressed with his usual elegance. I'm sorry, Marcus. But Jessica is my sister. No matter how angry I am, she's family. I understand, Marcus placed his hand on his wife's shoulder. I'll go with you. But Emily, I'm your husband. If you're going, I'm going too. That's what being married means. Emily looked into her husband's eyes. There was firm resolve there. When they arrived at the church, the parking lot was already full of cars. When Emily and Marcus entered the venue, the guests' gazes focused on them. The attention on Marcus was particularly obvious, some people stared with curiosity, while others showed clear discomfort. Emily. Dorothy came running over. She was wearing a pale purple dress in an elegant, motherly style. However, her expression was complicated. Mom, Emily greeted her, but seeing her mother's gaze turned to Marcus made her heart heavy. Marcus, Dorothy said to her son-in-law. You came too. Of course. This is Jessica's important day, Marcus answered politely. At that moment, Robert appeared. He was dressed in a black tuxedo, befitting the father of the bride. When he saw Marcus, his expression hardened. Hey there, Marcus, Robert gave a perfunctory greeting. Your seats are prepared in the middle section. Thank you. Emily was hurt by her parents' attitude. They were treating Marcus as if he were an unwelcome guest. "Let's go check our seats," Emily took her husband's arm. Walking down the church's center aisle, Emily could feel the surrounding gazes. Whispered conversations, curious looks, and sometimes clearly disapproving expressions. Marcus maintained his composure on the surface, but Emily could sense his tension. The assigned seats were indeed in the middle section, but not on the aisle side, they were toward the end. The arrangement seemed designed to hide them. "Making us sit in a place like this," Emily said in a low voice. "It doesn't matter," Marcus answered quietly. "What's important is Jessica's happiness." Soon, the organ music began to play, and the wedding march started. Brian took his place in front of the altar, followed by the bridesmaids. Finally, Jessica appeared, arm in arm with her father. Jessica in her pure white wedding dress was certainly beautiful. However, Emily watched the scene with mixed feelings. Her desire to wholeheartedly celebrate her beloved sister's special moment was mixed with anger over last week's events. As the ceremony progressed, Emily occasionally felt the surrounding gazes. She could tell that the groom's family and friends were particularly looking at Marcus. Those gazes weren't necessarily hostile, but they clearly contained curiosity. While the pastor was giving his blessing to the bride and groom, a small commotion occurred at the back of the church. When Emily turned around, she saw a man quietly entering. The man was wearing a fine suit and carried himself with dignified bearing. When this man spotted Marcus, he showed clear surprise. Then he squinted as if confirming something. After the ceremony ended and the bride and groom exited, Emily and Marcus also stood up. However, the man from earlier approached them. "Excuse me," the man said to Marcus. "Are you?" "Yes." Marcus turned around. "Aren't you Marcus Thompson?" "Yes, I am." The man's face brightened. "I knew it. I'm John Ashley, president of Ashley Construction. You helped us before." Emily looked at her husband. Marcus smiled gently and answered, "Mr. Ashley, it's been a long time. What a surprise to meet you here." "Actually, I'm the groom's cousin," John explained. "But still, what a surprise to meet you here. Are you with your wife?" "Yes, this is my wife Emily," Marcus introduced Emily. "Pleased to meet you. Your husband has been a great help to us," John greeted Emily politely. At that moment, the move to the reception venue began. However, John's presence had subtly changed the atmosphere in the church. Several guests were watching Marcus and John's conversation with interest. At the hotel's banquet room, cocktail hour had begun. Emily and Marcus were standing quietly in a corner, but John approached them again. "President Thompson, thank you for taking time from your busy schedule." "President?" one of the nearby guests asked. "Yes, he's the president of Thompson Construction Company," John answered loudly. "Our company has had a long business relationship with them." The venue began to buzz. Thompson Construction Company was so well known in the region that there wasn't a person who hadn't heard of it. "Why is the president of Thompson Company here?" another guest whispered. "He's the bride's brother-in-law," someone answered. At that moment, Robert approached with a pale face. The largest client of the company where he worked was precisely Thompson Construction Company. "Marcus," Robert's voice was shaking. "You are?" "Yes, Robert," Marcus answered quietly. "Good to see you." The buzzing in the venue grew louder. Jessica and Brian also turned around, wondering what was happening. Jessica's face went pale. "Is the sister's husband really the president of that Thompson Company?" one guest said loudly. "Apparently so." "My goodness. No wonder he seemed so refined." Emily stared at her husband. Marcus maintained his calm expression as usual, but complex emotions dwelt in his eyes. Dorothy said in a trembling voice, "Marcus, you are?" "I apologize," Marcus answered quietly. "I wasn't hiding it intentionally, but I didn't think it was necessary to mention." The venue's attention turned entirely to Marcus. The man who had been looked at with curious eyes just moments before was now being regarded with respectful gazes. Jessica cried out in a trembling voice, "That can't be true, right?" However, the reality was clear. Marcus Thompson was the president of the most successful construction company in the region. And that fact was more than enough to leave the Hamilton family speechless. It took a long time for the venue's commotion to settle down. The guests looked at Marcus with expressions of surprise and confusion. Meanwhile, the Hamilton family members stood as if struck by lightning. John Ashley sensed the situation and said quietly to Marcus, "I'm sorry. It seems I've created an awkward situation." "Not at all, please don't worry about it," Marcus answered calmly. "I was planning to reveal it eventually." Robert approached with a trembling voice. "Marcus, are you really the president of Thompson Construction Company?" "Yes," Marcus nodded quietly. "I'm the founder's son, and I've been serving as president for 5 years." Robert's face went pale. 60% of the annual revenue of the mid-sized construction company where he worked, Hamilton Engineering, came from subcontracting work from Thompson Company. In other words, Marcus was in a position to influence his company's management. "But," Dorothy gasped, "why did you hide it?" Emily finally spoke up. "I was the one hiding it, Mom." The family's gazes all turned to Emily. "What do you mean?" Jessica asked tearfully. Emily took a deep breath. "Marcus wanted to reveal his identity from the beginning. But I stopped him." "Why?" "Because I wanted to be loved," Emily's voice trembled. "Not for status or wealth, but loved as a person." The venue fell silent. Emily continued while looking at her husband. "We met 3 years ago. I was still working as an insurance salesperson then." The memory of that day came back vividly to Emily's mind. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon. Emily was at a small sales office, consulting with a client. The man was asking detailed questions about ordinary life insurance. It wasn't expensive insurance at all, just very standard coverage. "I'm considering insurance for my family," the man, Marcus, said with a serious expression. "I'm thinking about when I get married and have children in the future." Emily was impressed by his sincere attitude. Many clients saw sales representatives only as tools to get lower prices, but Marcus was different. He made an effort to understand the insurance content and listened earnestly to Emily's explanations. "I'm glad I met a sales representative like you," Marcus said while signing the contract. "You're very honest and trustworthy." After that, Marcus began visiting the sales office once a month, using minor questions as an excuse. Emily also began to look forward to her conversations with him. He was intellectual, kind, and above all, full of human charm. "Actually, I have something to ask." 3 months later, Marcus appeared just before the office closed. "If you have time sometime, would you like to have coffee?" Emily answered with a blushing face, "Yes, I'd love to." Their first date was at a small cafe. Marcus talked about working in the construction industry, valuing family, and his dreams for the future. However, he didn't speak in detail about his company's size or his position. "My work is quite ordinary," Marcus said modestly. "But I think it's important work that supports people's lives." 6 months after they began dating, Emily learned Marcus's true identity by chance. In an article on the business page of the newspaper, Marcus's photo was prominently featured as the new president of Thompson Construction Company. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emily confronted him, showing him the article. Marcus looked troubled. "I was planning to tell you. But the timing. You approached me while hiding your position? Were you deceiving me?" "No," Marcus looked at Emily with serious eyes. "I was truly attracted to you. At first, I certainly approached you as an ordinary insurance customer, but as I got to know your character, I came to love you sincerely." "But..." "Emily, I've met many women before. But most of them showed interest in my position and wealth. You were different. You saw me as one human being." Emily said through tears, "But you still lied to me." "Yes. I'm truly sorry," Marcus bowed his head. "But please, face me as I am. Look at Marcus Thompson as one man, without his position." That night, Emily continued thinking alone. He had certainly lied. However, she could understand the feelings behind that lie. She could imagine how difficult it was for a successful man to find true love. The next day, Emily called Marcus. Let's start over from the beginning. Emily. But I have a condition. Until we get married, let's keep your real job secret. I won't tell my family either. Why? I want to confirm something too. Whether you truly love me, or whether you see me as a convenient wife candidate. Marcus smiled a little sadly. I understand. But someday we'll have to talk about it. Yes, someday. At the venue, Emily continued while wiping away tears. So Marcus interacted with my family as an ordinary construction company employee. I wanted to confirm how you would see him, whether you would judge his humanity without knowing his position. Dorothy said in a trembling voice, so we. You only judged him by his skin color. Emily's voice was cold. You ignored his kindness, his character, his intelligence, everything. Robert held his head. He realized he had looked at his company's most important client with prejudiced eyes. Moreover, that person was his daughter's husband. Marcus, Robert said in a trembling voice, I. It's all right, Robert, Marcus answered quietly. I'm glad I could learn your honest feelings. Jessica approached while crying. Marcus, I. Jessica, Marcus smiled gently. Today is your special day. Please enjoy it. But I said such terrible things. That's in the past. What matters is how we face each other from now on. The guests at the venue watched this family's complex drama. Reflection showed on many people's faces. The fact that the man they had been looking at with curiosity and prejudice was actually the president of the region's most successful company had greatly shocked their values. John Ashley approached Marcus. Thank you again for today. About next week's meeting, I look forward to working with you. Yes, thank you as well. At that moment, Emily noticed that the guests' gazes had changed. The looks that had been full of curiosity and prejudice just moments before had now changed to respect and awe. However, Emily understood that this too was merely superficial. How ironic, Emily murmured quietly. His skin color hasn't changed, but everyone's way of looking at him changed in an instant. Marcus squeezed his wife's hand. But you saw me from the beginning. That's what matters most. The bride and groom, Brian and Jessica, approached hesitantly. Their expressions mixed confusion with apologetic feelings. Marcus, Brian said. Thank you so much for today. And I'm truly sorry. Please don't worry about it, Marcus smiled at the groom. I sincerely celebrate both of your new beginning. In that moment, Emily realized anew her husband's greatness. Even when humiliated, he could wish for others' happiness without showing anger. Regardless of skin color or position, he was truly a gentleman. 3 months after the wedding, on an autumn afternoon, Emily and Marcus were relaxing in their home's living room. Sitting on the spacious sofa and gazing at the fireplace, the two spent quiet time together. Since that commotion, their lives had changed significantly. The first change came to Robert's workplace. Business with Thompson Construction Company continued, but Robert's own position became delicate. When colleagues learned he was the president's father-in-law, they showed complex reactions. Some people suddenly became fawning, while others began keeping their distance. In the end, nobody treats me normally anymore, Robert confided to Emily over the phone recently. They either see me as Marcus's father-in-law, or as a prejudiced fool. Deep regret permeated Robert's voice. He understood firsthand how foolish his prejudice had been. Jessica's situation was even more complex. Her position at the hospital had also changed. The events at the wedding had spread among regional medical personnel through the guests. For her as a working nurse, this reputation in a medical setting that emphasized diversity and equality was certainly not good. Sis, Jessica called Emily last month, crying as she apologized over the phone. I said truly horrible things. To Marcus, and to you. Jessica. My colleagues at work, my patients, everyone looks at me differently now. As a nurse, I should treat all people equally, but I showed such discriminatory attitudes toward family. Dorothy was the most seriously affected of the three. Her reputation in the neighborhood women's association and church community had fallen to the ground. Especially after it became known that Marcus was a local influential person, many people began critically discussing her previous attitude. To think she judged that wonderful company president by his skin color, neighbors whispered. So that's the kind of person Dorothy really was. Dorothy felt increasingly isolated. The social relationships she had built over many years crumbled from a single incident. Meanwhile, Emily and Marcus deepened their bond through this experience. After Marcus's identity was revealed, the two began to value relationships with people they could truly trust. "Your colleagues are really wonderful," Emily said to her husband. "They don't care about skin color at all. At my company, ability and character are the only evaluation criteria," Marcus smiled. "Everyone understands that diversity is our strength." Indeed, Marcus's friends and colleagues welcomed Emily warmly. They were people who valued individual worth regardless of race or background. "True family isn't just about blood relations," Emily murmured while resting her head on Marcus's shoulder. "That's right," Marcus gently stroked his wife's hair. "People who can respect and support each other are true family." The relationship with the Hamilton family wasn't completely repaired. Emily didn't completely reject her family, but she avoided the frequent interactions they'd had before. They would meet on special occasions, but building deeper relationships had become difficult. Last week, Robert called for the first time in a while. "Emily, won't you come to Thanksgiving dinner? You and Marcus together?" "Dad. We were wrong. I want to apologize from the heart. And now I can understand what a wonderful person Marcus is." Emily thought for a moment before answering. "I'll discuss it with Marcus. But don't think we can go back to the same relationship as before." "I understand. But I want to take at least the first step." After hanging up, Emily consulted with Marcus. "Shall we try going?" Marcus said gently. "People can change. With time, we might be able to understand each other little by little." "You're really kind," Emily looked at her husband. "It's because you're here with me," Marcus took his wife's hand. "Because I have your love, I can be tolerant." The evening sun streamed through the window, warmly illuminating the two figures. Emily thought that true love meant seeing the beauty of someone's heart, not their appearance or status. And that real family meant relationships where people could support each other unconditionally. Many challenges still lay ahead of them. However, as two people who loved and respected each other deeply, they would surely overcome any difficulty. For the two who had found true love, their future life would certainly be bright.